Me and the boys were standing some walls, needed a couple moved out of the way, so we leaned them up against another wall, clamped them, and I was doing layout and looked up and the panels were coming down on me. Fractured my femur. Well, I remember everyone just started yelling, "Man down, man down, man down," and then so I just heard that someone was calling 911. It was very, very challenging for my family, for my parents, for my brothers to see me in that state. It takes a lot out of you, and you can see that it takes quite a bit out of them to see you like that, right?
Every year, thousands of Canadian construction workers are hurt on the job. Often these injuries are the result of working unsafe, other workers' unsafe actions, or accepting substandard conditions.
Safe worker is a person that can see all of the hazards and know that they're hazards.
Being honest with yourself about what could potentially happen.
A core principle towards being safe begins with having a positive attitude towards your task and safety. This means that you choose to do things the right way instead of taking shortcuts. It means planning your job so you have the right tools for the task and having the proper knowledge prior to undertaking a task. This includes being competent with the tools and equipment to complete your task. Ultimately, it means you are making safety a value and choosing to care about yourself and about others on a job site. Is having a positive attitude towards safety all it takes? Well, it does make up a large part. However, we all have different levels of risk that we are willing to accept. Risk tolerance varies from person to person, and this is a critical component to safety, both on and off the job. Some of the elements that will affect each individual's decision-making regarding acceptable risk on the job are experience, complacency, timelines, and both personal and perceived company expectations placed on themselves to complete their task.
You don't know your task. You could be walking into a situation where you could get hurt by simultaneous activities or by your peer or just by the job scope itself that you're not aware of.
Before starting any task on a work site, have you asked yourself if you truly understand what you're trying to accomplish? Part of knowing your task means that you assess it for hazards. If we don't know what the hazards are, how can we possibly protect ourselves from them? We hear it all the time. Look out for hazards and eliminate or control them. Well, what are hazards? If we look at the big picture in defining a hazard, then we can adopt the statement that a hazard is any situation or event in the workplace with the potential to impact the health and safety of people, the environment we work in, or the materials and equipment we use. It's important to recognize that for every task, these hazards may vary and are expected to change based on the workers completing the task, the equipment used, and the worksite itself. Whose job is it to identify hazards? Well, it's everyone's job to identify, assess, and control workplace hazards in order to help prevent near misses and incidents. In fact, hazard assessments are a legislated requirement that obligates employers to involve workers to ensure proper hazard assessments are being completed and documented. So we know we need to conduct hazard assessments. Where do we begin? Any hazard assessment tool must be a documented process for workers and crews to identify the tasks they are to complete, the hazards associated with the tasks, and what measures can be put in place to either eliminate hazards or, at the very least, establish control measures and steps in order to keep the level of risk to an acceptable level. While each company may differ slightly, very common tools utilized in industry are field-level hazard assessments, task hazard assessments, and job safety analyses. All hazard assessments are to be used at the start of the day's work and completed in the area in which the work is to be completed. There's a lot going on in assessing your task without question. But there's also a very good chance your company has put a lot of time and resources into providing you with additional tools to help you get your job done safely. These tools can consist of safe work practices and safe job procedures. A safe work practice is a guiding document that will provide you with general do's and do-nots associated with a particular task or operation. A safe job procedure is a detailed breakdown of a task into multiple steps on how to accomplish the task safely. It's critical to remember that utilizing these tools alone does not eliminate the need to conduct and document a proper hazard assessment specific to your task. These documents should be used in conjunction with your hazard assessment document, as they may highlight additional controls which can be used. So we've discussed the critical component of hazard identification. Now we need to eliminate or control the hazards. For any hazard identified, the best thing you can do is eliminate it before work starts. A most simplistic example of elimination can be a tool in the work area that is lying on the ground presenting a significant tripping hazard. If we simply pick up the tool and put it away properly, we've eliminated the hazard. This may sound a little too simple. However, these steps are often overlooked and accepted as a non-standard working condition. If the hazard can't be eliminated, then the hazard must be controlled. The first level of controls would be an engineered system or substitution to control the hazard. Engineering controls are physical designs intended to prevent or eliminate worker contact with the hazard, such as guards or barricades. Substitution will replace hazardous materials or machines with less hazardous ones. The second step towards hazard control are administrative controls. Administrative controls are processes and procedures that are developed regarding the hazards. This can be everything from safe work practices to work and rest schedules, or coming up with scheduling solutions to limit the number of people exposed to the hazard. The last line of defense for hazard control is personal protective equipment. For PPE to be effective, you must have the right gear, know how to use it properly, and how to safely care for it and store it. Of course, PPE is only effective if you use it and should be worn at all times to avoid gaps in personal protection. Following this order of elimination and controls, or better yet, using a combination of all, significantly contributes to reducing the likelihood of a hazard manifesting into injury or harm on a work site. Another key element of the hazard assessment process is a ranking system based on probability and severity, which will help you organize and manage the hazards appropriately. Probability takes into account how likely or unlikely the hazard is to occur, whereas severity considers how serious the hazard is. Taking these two items into account will help identify the risk rating of the hazard, and also help you ensure the controls you put in place are effective. Categorize all your identified and ranked hazards based on a worst to first scenario. Items that have the highest risk should be prioritized for controls first. Once controls are in place, you can then reevaluate the hazards which should have been brought down to an acceptable risk level before starting work. So you finally have controls in place and have started your task. All this hazard assessment stuff is done, right? Well, no. Things change all the time due to other site activities, to weather, to new hazards being identified, or changes in work scope. But when things do change, remember to react and ensure your hazard assessment document reflects the changes you've completed to eliminate or control the hazards. Another key element that makes you a safe worker is training. You've seen other workers do the job and think you can do it. Should you? Never. Receiving the proper training is critical in your part of being a safe worker. If you don't know a process or how to use a piece of equipment or a tool, how can you be expected to complete your task safely? Keep in mind that there are tasks that require proper certification which can't be learned on site alone. Untrained or inexperienced workers are at higher risk of getting hurt, especially if performing complicated tasks without supervision or tasks requiring specific training. As an employee, you have the right to receive training to understand how to do your job safely. But proper training is not the end of your employer's responsibility. They are also required to confirm or deem that you are competent in the work you've been trained to do. Fit for duty is an important concept to understand. This means you arrive to work ready, willing, and able to do your job, free from the influence of drugs, alcohol, or distraction. It means that you have no medical conditions that will impede you from performing your duties safely. It means you're taking care of yourself and trying to maintain a healthy lifestyle that includes adequate rest, nutritious food, and proper hydration. Fit for duty also takes into account your mental health. This can mean stress in your home life from relationships, long or short-term fatigue, or even financial challenges that affect your focus or thought process can impair your decision-making abilities. Significant distractions in people's home life can make them unsafe to themselves or others on a job site. It's your responsibility to notify your supervisor if you are not fit for duty. An employer must also take reasonable steps to ensure employees are fit for duty, as it is important for your safety and the safety of all those around you. No work site is perfect. No worker is perfect. We all do our best to ensure everyone and everything stays safe. However, if there is an incident, including a near miss, we need to learn from it to prevent a similar and/or more severe event in the future. All incidents involving damage to personnel, property and materials, or the environment, and all situations with the potential to cause damage, must be reported to a supervisor immediately. If you are ever witness to or involved in an incident, provided it is safe to do so and no one requires medical assistance, freeze the scene and notify supervision immediately. Your involvement in reporting near misses and incidents is instrumental in helping improve worksite safety for you and everyone around you. Of course, many incidents can be avoided. Should you observe someone not working safely or unaware of a hazard, stop them and ask that they take a second look at what they're doing. Taking the time to treat people the way you want to be treated could save them from a life-altering injury. Safety is a team effort, and everyone can have a positive impact in someone's day. Do you know what to do in an emergency? Before the start of every job, an emergency response plan must be developed for your site. This plan outlines how to react, evacuation procedures, where to go, and what to do to minimize danger to life, property, and the environment. Your worksite emergency response plan will be a critical part of your site-specific orientation. While specific procedures may vary slightly from site to site, ensure that you fully understand what alarms will be sounded in the event of an evacuation and know where your muster points are. Never underestimate the importance of knowing this key point, as it could make the difference in the event of a significant event. You know that sign in and out sheet you sign each day? It's very important also. It's the tool your employer will use to ensure that everyone has safely arrived at the muster point. Make sure you remember to sign in and out all the time. There's a lot to being a safe worker, but most importantly, it's ultimately up to you to work safely. Sure, there's rules, policies, procedures, tools, and supervision to try and provide you a safe workplace. But at the end of the day, in order to go home safe every day, you are the only one that can decide what your attitude will be towards working safely.
Well, it's not going to happen to me. It'll be okay. And then that's not the case, and it does happen to you, right? Well, these FLHAs are for a reason. Your pre-inspections are for a reason. The reason you have it on you is so when tasks change, you can think about these new tasks and what might happen. I hold myself accountable and responsible first and foremost. You know, it is serious, and it doesn't seem like it. Like, most of it's just scrapes and bruises, but suddenly it's not.